Alright, so it's the hottest day of the year. Time to spend some time in a hot workshop fixing an old fan. Why didn't I do this last week? No idea. Right, so this is one of the GEC Sprite fans. You can see I've got the box. Don't think it's the box for this fan, but it's pretty basically the same model, just different colour. And then we've got the fan. Now, if we just have a quick look at the box, you can see GEC Sprite. There's actually this is stuck on, so there's something else under there. I think it says two-tone something, so don't know why that was. Maybe just to make it more attractive. You can see there it says two-tone table fans for the office and the home, made by the General Electric Company Limited of England. And then on the top we've got to open, press fingers into the holes on both top and bottom of box and press side with thumbs. Don't really know. Oh, okay, I guess you're meant to do that. The box itself doesn't have, I don't have any instructions with this, so we've just got the kind of cardboard inner, and then the box, which you can see the inside bit slides out of. Then on the back we've got two-tone table fan, alternating current only, GEC everything electrical, which seemed to be their tagline in the 50s. And it says, moulded in polythene, this fan is resilient and not easily damaged. The blade is sufficiently flexible not to cause injury if accidentally touched while the fan is running. And you'll see why that's not totally true in a bit. Catalogue number, voltage 230 250, 50 hertz, and oh, it is red and white actually, so it could be for this fan. So yeah, although the box shows black and yellow, it's actually red and white finish. So a bit battered, the box, but very, I think, very nice design, and obviously made to be kind of carried out of the shop. And then we have the fan itself. So this, as you can see, is moulded. It's got 3 feet, 2 at the front and 1 that folds out at the back. So it stands on desk like that, slightly angled back. Then we've got the GEC sticker on the bottom. So it's fairly flexible. It says it's polythene. The fan blades, I mean, it says sufficiently flexible. They're not they're not really flexible. It's moulded in the same polythene, I think. So yeah, and obviously there's no, it's designed without any guard over it. So I'm sure when this is running, if you stick your finger in, it's going to hurt. But anyway, different times. People weren't worried about being sued by someone dumb enough to stick their finger in a fan. So this works. What I'm going to do though is change the cable. So this is not the original cable. The original cable was just like figure of 8 kind of bell wire type cable. No earth, it's just line and neutral. But as I say, the original cable was just like bell wire, so it was only single insulation. There was no outer cover. And this has been replaced with a more modern double insulated flex. But as you can see, something has happened. It's been shut in something. And although it hasn't gone through the inner conductors, that is a really good example of why you want double insulated wire on things like this. If that wasn't double insulated, then that would expose the conductors. So I'm going to replace this. It's a pretty simple job, I think, but I just thought it was worth highlighting. If you do buy one of these on eBay, they're not crazy expensive. The single speed, there's no cover on them. You've got the on-off switch, which I think is original. It's Arc Electric, made in England, so I'm assuming that's original. It does have a slight crack in it, but I think it's fine. But it's only single speed, so if you want to vary the speed, you can buy kind of plug-in speed controllers for fans. You'll need that, and it is fairly, not noisy, but it runs fairly fast. So if you do buy one of these and it's got the original flex on, I really recommend you changing the flex to something more modern. Right, so I thought it was just worth mentioning a little bit about GEC, because I'm sure a lot of people watching this have never heard of GEC. GEC stands for the General Electric Company of Britain. They're nothing to do with GE or General Electric in the US, totally different company. GEC were a long-standing company. I think they started early in the 1900s, but they really became massive in the 50s. They bought lots of different brands and really dominated the UK home electrical appliance market through the 50s, all the way really until the 80s. Now no longer with us. They made some really bad investments in the 90s, and the dot-com bubble bursting in the early 2000s basically destroyed the company. The fan that you see here is the Sprite, and I think it was launched about 1962. You can see here this advert, which is from 1962, and they talk about the little fan with a big breeze. And so this was a budget offering. It's only a single speed. GEC did some much more expensive fans, but this was their budget offering. And as you can see here, these are three of the fans that I've got. It's available in different colour combinations. There was red and white, there was black and yellow, and then there's kind of pale blue and white. I've also seen a video of a green and white fan, but I've never seen one on sale in that colour combination. So they were available in different colour combinations, and very modern, very simple, but also the fact that it's all really made from plastic, very much of its time from the 1960s. So to get inside, all you do is pull the fan off. There you go, and it's just a friction fit on this drive shaft that's got a flat on it. You can see it's all pretty clean in there. What I'm going to do is just remove those two screws, and then we can get the motor out of the housing. So let me just do that. Okay, so there you go. I guess that's the original strain relief thing. And then because the wires come straight out of the windings, there's no kind of terminal block, I guess, to keep the size small. Somebody's just soldered to those, so I'm just going to basically do the same. So pretty simple. It's just, I'm going to have to wire that up, and then I'll cut that, unsolder those, and put the new wire on. I can just see actually the plastic has split there. So I need to probably do something about that as well, because that's holding the motor in. Right, so for a little update, someone's done this really nicely actually. They've actually crimped the wires together. So I have some non-insulated crimps here, so I might try and replicate that. Yeah, I'm guessing, I don't know whether, I can't imagine this gets that hot, but anyway, I'm going to try and crimp it. So I thought that was just soldered together, but it's actually crimped, as you can see, quite neatly. Right, so I have crimped the wires together and just put some heat shrink over them. So that is good to go. What I just found that I've just taken the switch apart. This is the Arc Electric switch, and it's really clever. So it's a really small little inline switch, just switches the line. You can see there is a slight crack there, but it has actually been glued inside, so I think that's okay. And the way the switch is wired, they've just cut into the line, and then there are the two connections, and the neutral is kind of looped around this pin, which is acting as the strain relief on the terminals. So that means that as you pull this, the neutral wire is actually taking all the force, and the connections to the line or live are not taking any force. So really quite clever piece of design. It's quite a faff, I guess, having to cut just the line and do that, but yeah, it's a very clever way of doing strain relief without actually, you know, having big clamps, which would make this whole thing much bigger. So very neat little switch, and seems to work fine. So I'm going to keep that and just rewire this. The other thing I've just done is glued this kind of split piece of plastic. I'm not sure, unfortunately, how well that's going to hold. So I did use some epoxy that is made for polythene. I'm not, because polythene is quite a slippery kind of plastic, so I'm not actually sure how well that's going to last. But I also just went over it with an old soldering iron as well, just to melt the plastic, kind of weld it together a bit. So yeah, it's not going to be as strong as when it was new, but hopefully it will hold. I mean, it's really, I'm just looking, that one's split as well, so there's obviously a bit of a, don't know whether you can see that, there's a slight split there. So there's actually a, you know, they should have put more material around these two lugs by the look of it. Anyway, I'll see how it goes. I mean, it's really only holding the motor. I guess the only problem is if, as the motor's not perfectly balanced and the fan isn't perfectly balanced, it's kind of, you know, putting some strain on these things as it wobbles around a bit. Anyway, it is what it is. We'll see how we go. If this doesn't work, then I don't know, we'll have to think up something else. Yeah, you can see there how it's been formed just by cutting the line or live, which is very neat. I think I've got some little brass solder tags, so we'll try and recreate that. So I was just trying to sneak up on cutting through the outer without obviously going through the inner cables, so just doing that really carefully. Now I want to try and split this without again cutting the cable. Okay, there we go, and that should be, yeah, there you go. So it's the same length as that. So the the line needs to be cut in the middle. Just going to terminate the two line wires. We have a bit of a problem. The attempt to glue this with epoxy made for polythene didn't work at all. And me trying to kind of weld it with a soldering iron hasn't worked as well. I think the pressure of the screw is just going to split that. Polythene is a tricky thing to glue. You can't just use normal glue, and I did have some glue made for polythene, but it just hasn't worked. So I don't know what mix of polythene this was back in the 60s, but anyway. So this is kind of difficult now because having done a bit of research, the only other option people suggest is to use hot melt glue, which I'm not sure how well that's going to stick, but I'm going to give it a go. What I'll do is put this back in place and then build up hot melt glue around it, and the same on that side. Not convinced how well it's going to stick, but that's the only other option really that I can think of. I could probably put longer screws in, but I might do that together with hot melt glue. The only other thing I could think of is to 3D print some sort of insert that will sit around there, and I can put two screws into that. But then how to hold that insert into the fan is a bit problematic. Gluing isn't going to be very good because glue hasn't worked very well with it. I mean, I could put 3 screws into it kind of this way and make some sort of, you know, plate. That might be, if the hot melt glue doesn't work, it might have to come to that. Anyway, so let's give the hot melt glue a go. Right, so I'll have first go on the easier one, which is just the one with a bit of a split. So I'm just going to see about, I'll build up some glue. Well, it's not going to win any prizes for beauty, certainly, but if it works, using a wet finger to try and shape it a bit. This is just a generic glue stick. I know you can get different types of glue stick. That's all I've got. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. See how well it sticks. It feels fairly well stuck, but we will see. Okay, so I've built those up with hot melt glue. It seems to stick pretty well, but you know, it's not a hard plastic. It's quite kind of rubbery, soft. So it seems to stick, but we'll see. But I've just had another thought. So I've got these threaded inserts, brass threaded inserts, which are designed to be melted into plastic. You can get a kit of these things, different sizes, all metric, and what you can also get is this threaded piece that goes in a standard soldering iron, and you can screw different size pieces on, and the idea is that goes down the middle of the bush, and you can hold it vertical you can hold it in place as you're pushing it in and melting it, and obviously the soldering iron heats this up. So I'm kind of thinking that might be a good option, because it will, by heating it up, it will help to kind of weld the plastic together. There you go, that's the size for the 3mm. So I'm going to give that a go, because although I think that is stuck, it's not very rigid. So when I put a self-tapping screw in, I'm worried it's just going to force it apart and not really hold. Whereas if I can put one of these or two of these brass inserts in, and then put these are 3mm, just put a 3mm screw, then that may work better. So I'm just going to do that. So yeah, it's worth it if you. I mean, I've used these. I used them on the Garrard turntable for the cartridge kind of spacer, and they worked really well there. Just pushing them into 3D printed material, PLA. It's worth, you know, for a few pounds you can get a kit of all different sizes. I mean, this goes down to M2, and there are different lengths, so different screw sizes and different lengths as well. And you can also, some of the kits come with these adapters for the soldering iron, which is worth having, because as I say, it just helps you control. I did try originally just pushing them in with a soldering iron, but because you've got very little control over the angle, it's hard to get them in straight, whereas these things, kind of soldering iron tips, help you push it in straight. So let's give it a go. So just put that on there and let it heat up a bit, and then yeah, this kind of, it'll prevent having to use a self-tapping screw that might split the plastic again, and also it might help weld together the plastic around the hole a little bit. So we will see how this goes. You can tweak them slightly if you haven't quite got them straight, so that certainly melted the hot melt glue around it, and it, you know, you can feel it kind of going in gradually. So we will see. Okay, so if you can see, hopefully you can see, they have gone in. They've melted the hot melt glue, so there's obviously quite a bit of heat. You can see where the glue goes clear, where it's turned molten. And they've gone down into the plastic, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that is going to be enough to not split the plastic. I can just use 3mm, standard 3mm screw then to hold the motor in. Now let's try and mount this back in here then now. Hang on. There you go, it's a bit better. You can see what we're doing. Yeah, it's a bit of a, I think the hot melt glue is making it slightly tight fit in the housing, but I'm going to over tighten them, don't want to push my luck too much. I think that is rigidly mounted in there, so before I put the fan on, what I might do is just let this run for a bit, just to see how warm the motor gets, because obviously hot melt glue hasn't got a very high melting temperature, so I don't want it all to turn into a gooey mess. So let's plug that in. Turn it on. Alright, there's the motor spinning. Right, that's been running for 5 minutes. About body temperature, so I think that will be fine. So I think that's worked. I'm not going to over tighten them, but that seems to be much better than, well, certainly gluing this polythene. So I think those brass inserts are probably the way to go, combined with hot melt glue around to the combination of the two. So all that remains then is to put the fan blade on. So the motor has a flat on it, and the fan blade has a flat pointing to this blade here. So if I try and get them to line up, there you go, that's it. It's just a friction fit on there. So the moment of truth, let's see what happens when we plug it back in and try it. 3, 2, 1. Pretty good. You can probably hear the, you know, it's not silent. What I have got is, you can get them for like £10 on Amazon or eBay. It's a variable fan speed controller. It's just like, you know, it goes into a plug socket and then you plug the fan into it, and it's got a variable control on it. And it works really well with these fans, so you can slow them down, and it really does reduce the noise a lot. So, you know, if you want to use it while sleeping, then that's probably the way to go, because there is no speed controls, just on and off on these fans. But they're really nice little fans. You can get, as you've seen, you know, you can get different colours, black and yellow and light blue and white. And I have seen a YouTube video of a green and white one. I've never seen one of those for sale, but there were some different colours that you can get. I quite like the pale blue and white personally, but you know, just personal preference. There were some kind of slight differences. Some don't have the GEC sticker on, or it's, you know, worn off. It's quite like a metallized foil sticker. Some don't seem to have the gold centerpiece of the fan, like like a sticker. But other than that, oh, and some seem to have slightly different feet, but basically I think this is a pretty popular fan in the 60s. And so yeah, if you can find one, it's a good price, I recommend it. But as I say, if it's got the original figure of 8 flex on that's not double insulated, it's well worth replacing the flex, because if the flex gets caught in something, this is a lot safer than just single insulated. Alright, I will see you in the next video.